What happens when a beloved morning show host tries to ask a simple question and a royal guest completely loses control on live television? In just 37 seconds, Prince Harry went from composed interviewee to absolute chaos, storming off the set of This Morning in what can only be described as one of the most shocking meltdowns in British talk show history. It started like any other Wednesday morning. Allison Hammond, everyone's favorite ray of sunshine on This Morning, was sitting across from Prince Harry in her usual bright and bubbly way. The studio lights were warm, the audience was excited, and everything seemed perfectly normal. Allison had that signature smile on her face, the one that makes millions of viewers feel like they're having a chat with their best friend over a cup of tea. She leaned forward in her chair, notebook in hand, and started with what seemed like the most innocent question imaginable. "So, Harry," she said with genuine warmth in her voice, "I think what everyone really wants to know is how you're managing everything. You know, the balance between your public life and your private life. It must be quite difficult at times." Harry shifted in his seat. Just a small movement, but you could see something change in his expression. His jaw tensed slightly. He looked at Allison, then at the cameras, then back at Allison again. "Well, Allison," he began, his voice already carrying an edge that hadn't been there moments before. "I think that's quite a loaded question, isn't it?" Allison's smile didn't falter. She's a professional, after all. She's handled thousands of interviews with grace and charm. "I don't think it's loaded at all, love," she responded gently. "I'm just asking how you're doing. Our viewers care about you." But Harry wasn't having it. He sat up straighter, his posture suddenly defensive. "Your viewers care about me?" he repeated, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Or do they just want another story to gossip about? Another headline to dissect over breakfast?" The atmosphere in the studio shifted. You could feel it. The crew members glanced at each other nervously. The audience sat a little straighter in their seats. Allison, ever the consummate professional, kept her composure beautifully. "Harry, I think that's a bit unfair," she said, her voice still kind but now with a firmness underneath. "We invited you here today because people genuinely want to hear from you. Nobody's trying to trap you or trick you. We're just having a conversation." Harry laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was sharp and bitter. "Just having a conversation?" he said, shaking his head. "Right. A conversation where you get to ask whatever you want, edit however you want, and I'm supposed to sit here and smile and play along like everything's fine." Allison took a breath. You could see her processing, trying to understand where this hostility was coming from. "Harry, nothing we're filming here today is getting edited. This is live television. What you say is what goes out. There's no tricks here, I promise you." "Promises?" Harry scoffed. "I've heard plenty of promises from people in this industry, Allison. From journalists, from producers, from people who claim they just want to help tell my story. And where does it always end up? Twisted, manipulated, used against me." The tension was building now, thick and uncomfortable. Allison leaned forward, her expression genuinely concerned. "Harry, I understand you've had difficult experiences with the media. I really do, and I'm sorry for that. But I'm not your enemy here. I'm really not." "Aren't you, though?" Harry shot back, his voice rising. "You're part of the same machine, aren't you? Sitting there with your questions, your cameras, your audience waiting to see what I'll say next so they can judge me, criticize me, tear apart every word." Allison's patience was remarkable. She didn't snap back. She didn't get defensive. Instead, she spoke even more gently. "Harry, that's not what this is. You know that's not what this is. I've always treated every guest on this show with respect and kindness. That's what we do here. We create a safe space for people to share their stories." Harry stood up suddenly, his microphone pack yanking against the wire. "Safe space?" he practically shouted. "Are you joking right now? There's no such thing as a safe space when there are cameras pointed at you and millions of people watching, waiting for you to slip up. The audience gasped. A few people in the front row looked genuinely shocked. Allison remained seated, looking up at him with what could only be described as disappointed concern. "Harry, please sit down," she said calmly. "Let's take a breath and start over. Clearly something's upset you, and that's okay. We can talk about it." But Harry was pacing now, his hand running through his hair in frustration. "You don't get it, do you? None of you get it. You sit there in your comfortable studio, asking your comfortable questions, and you have no idea what it's like to have your entire life scrutinized, analyzed, picked apart, piece by piece." Allison's voice remained steady. "You're absolutely right, Harry. I don't know what that's like. I can't imagine how difficult that must be. But taking your frustration out on me isn't fair. I'm here trying to give you a platform to speak, to share your perspective. That's all this is." Harry spun around to face her. "A platform?" he said incredulously. "You think you're doing me a favor? You think I need you, or this show, or any of this? I'm here because my team said it would be good for my image. Good for my image. As if I'm some product that needs to be marketed and sold to the public." "That's not what I think at all," Allison said, her voice still calm, but you could hear the hurt creeping in now. "I think you're a human being with a story, and sometimes sharing that story can help other people who are going through similar things. That's the power of conversation, Harry. That's the power of connection." Harry laughed again, that same harsh, mocking laugh. "Connection? You want to talk about connection? How connected do you think I feel right now? Sitting here being interrogated by someone who's probably never experienced a fraction of the pressure I deal with every single day?" Now Allison's expression changed. Just slightly, but it changed. The endless patience was wearing thin. "Harry, I'm going to stop you right there," she said, her voice firmer now. "I've been nothing but kind and respectful to you since you walked into this studio. I've given you space to express yourself. I've listened to your concerns, and I've tried to make this as comfortable as possible for you. But I will not sit here and be spoken to like I'm some kind of villain. I'm not." Harry's eyes flashed. "Oh, here we go. Now you're going to play the victim? That's rich, Allison. That's really rich." "I'm not playing anything," Allison replied, her voice strong and clear. "I'm being honest with you. You came onto this show, and I welcomed you with open arms. I prepared thoughtful questions because I wanted to give you the opportunity to share your truth. And instead of engaging with that, you've spent the last several minutes attacking me, attacking this show, and attacking everyone watching. That's not okay." The studio was dead silent. You could hear a pin drop. Even the camera operators seemed to be holding their breath. Harry's face was red now, his fists clenched at his sides. "You know what? I don't have to stand here and listen to this. I don't have to justify myself to you or anyone else. I came here thinking maybe, just maybe, this would be different. But it's not. It's the same thing it always is. People pretending to care while they're really just waiting for me to give them their next headline." Allison stood up now, matching his energy, but with grace. "Harry, the only person creating a headline right now is you. I asked you a simple, caring question about how you're doing, and you've turned this into something it never needed to be. If you're not comfortable being here, if you don't want to have this conversation, that's absolutely fine. You're free to leave, but don't twist this into something it's not." "Oh, I'm leaving," Harry said, his voice dripping with contempt. "I'm absolutely leaving. And you know what? Everyone watching at home should know exactly what kind of operation this is. This whole morning show routine, this fake friendliness, it's all an act. It's all designed to make people feel comfortable, so they'll say something you can use against them later." Allison's face showed genuine hurt now. "Harry, that's simply not true. and I think deep down you know it's not true. You're upset and you're lashing out, but that doesn't make what you're saying accurate. Harry ripped the microphone off his jacket, the sound echoing through the studio. I don't need to stand here and be lectured by you about what's accurate. You don't know me. You don't know my life. You don't know anything. You're right, Allison said, her voice quieter now, but no less powerful. I don't know everything about your life, but I do know that everyone in this studio, everyone watching at home, we all showed up today with good intentions. We wanted to hear from you. We wanted to support you. And you've thrown that back in our faces. Harry was walking toward the exit now, but he turned back one more time. Support me? He shouted. You wouldn't know how to support me if you tried. None of you would. You're all just part of the problem. And with that, he stormed off the set. The heavy studio door slammed behind him with a boom that echoed through the space. The camera stayed on Allison, who stood there for a moment, clearly processing what had just happened. Her chest rose and fell with deep breaths. You could see her gathering herself, pulling that professional composure back together. After what felt like an eternity, but was probably only a few seconds, she looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were a little glassy, but she held it together. Well, she said, her voice steady despite everything. That was certainly unexpected. I want to apologize to everyone watching. That's not the conversation I was hoping to have this morning. She sat back down in her chair, smoothing her dress. You know, we invite guests onto this show because we believe in the power of honest conversation. We believe in creating a space where people can be real, where they can be vulnerable, where they can share their truth without judgment. And I stand by that. I always will. Allison looked down at her hands for a moment, then back up at the camera. I genuinely wish Harry well. I really do. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know what pain he's carrying, but I hope he finds peace. I hope he finds people he can trust to talk to. Because everyone deserves that. Everyone deserves to feel heard and understood. She took another breath, and then that famous Allison Hammond smile started to return. Smaller than usual, but still there. Right, let's take a quick break, shall we? When we come back, we're going to lighten the mood a bit. We've got a wonderful segment about rescue dogs finding their forever homes. Because honestly, after that, I think we could all use some puppies. The camera slowly zoomed out as the show cut to commercial. But before the feed fully switched, you could see Allison's shoulders drop just a little, the weight of what had just happened settling on her. Someone from the crew approached her, probably to check if she was okay. She nodded, smiled weakly, and patted their hand in reassurance. Back in the studio, the audience sat in stunned silence. Some were whispering to each other, trying to process what they'd just witnessed. Others were checking their phones, probably already seeing the clip go viral on social media. The crew moved around efficiently, but quietly. Everyone still a bit shaken by the intensity of what had unfolded. What made the whole situation even more remarkable was how Allison had handled it. She could have fought back harder. She could have been cruel or cutting. She could have used her position as the host to humiliate him further. But she didn't. She stood her ground. Yes. She defended herself and her show. Absolutely. But she did it with dignity and grace. And that's what made the contrast so stark. Here was Allison, a woman who had worked incredibly hard to get where she is, who brings joy to millions of people every morning, who treats everyone she meets with genuine warmth and respect. And there was Harry, lashing out at someone who had done nothing to deserve it, someone who had only ever shown him kindness. The questions that were flying through everyone's minds were obvious. What had really triggered that reaction? Was it truly about the question Allison asked, or was it about something deeper? Was Harry dealing with something that had nothing to do with the interview itself, and Allison just happened to be in the firing line? Whatever the reason, the damage was done. The moment was captured. Live television doesn't offer second takes or do-overs. What happened, happened. And now it would be analyzed and discussed for days, weeks, probably months to come. Some people in the audience later said they felt genuinely scared during the confrontation. Not physically scared, but emotionally uncomfortable. The anger in Harry's voice, the way he towered over Allison at certain points, the aggressive pacing, it all created an atmosphere that felt unsafe. And yet Allison never once looked intimidated. She stood her ground, spoke her truth, and maintained her dignity throughout. Others said they felt embarrassed for Harry. Here was someone who had been given a platform, an opportunity to connect with people, to share his perspective, and instead he had used it to launch an unprovoked attack on someone who was only trying to do her job. The entitlement that dripped from every word he spoke, the assumption that he was above the normal conventions of polite conversation, the way he dismissed Allison's kindness as fake, it all painted a picture that many found difficult to watch. What was perhaps most telling was what Harry said versus what Allison said. Harry's words were all about himself, his struggles, his pain, his frustration with the media. There was no acknowledgement of Allison as a person, no recognition that she might have her own challenges and difficulties, no consideration for the fact that he was a guest in her space, and she was extending him courtesy and respect. Allison's words, on the other hand, even in the heat of the moment, tried to find understanding. She acknowledged his pain, validated his experiences with the media, and attempted multiple times to de-escalate the situation. She didn't make it about herself until she absolutely had to defend herself against his attacks. And even then, she did it without being cruel or vindictive. The moment when Harry ripped off his microphone was particularly dramatic. The sound technician later said they'd never seen anyone remove their mic with such aggressive force. It wasn't just about leaving the interview. It was about making a statement, about being as disruptive and attention-grabbing as possible on his way out. And that door slam. My goodness, that door slam. It reverberated through the entire studio. Some people jumped in their seats. It was the physical exclamation point on an already explosive situation. It was the final tantrum of someone who wasn't getting his way, who couldn't control the narrative the way he wanted to. What Harry perhaps didn't realize in that moment was that he was proving Allison right. She had been nothing but professional, nothing but kind, and his behavior showed everyone watching exactly who had the moral high ground in that situation. He had accused her of trying to create a headline, but the only person creating drama was him. The irony was almost painful. Harry had spent so much time talking about how the media twists things, how they manipulate situations, how they turn innocent moments into scandals. And yet here he was, on live television, with no editing, no manipulation, no twisting of words, simply revealing his own character through his own choices. There was no one to blame but himself. Allison's professionalism in the aftermath was just as impressive as her handling of the confrontation itself. She didn't badmouth Harry. She didn't gloat or act superior. She simply acknowledged what happened, expressed her wish for his well-being, and moved on with the show. That's the mark of a true professional. That's the mark of someone who understands that grace under pressure is the ultimate form of strength. The production team later said that Allison checked on every single person in the studio after the show wrapped. She wanted to make sure the crew was okay, that the audience members weren't too shaken up, that everyone felt supported after such an intense experience. That's who she is. That's the kind of person she's always been. Meanwhile, Harry had apparently left the building immediately, getting into a waiting car without speaking to anyone. No apology to the crew, no acknowledgement of the chaos he'd created, no recognition that his behavior might have affected other people. Just a quick exit, and a trail of confusion and discomfort left in his wake. The whole incident raised questions about celebrity entitlement, about the way some people believe their status puts them above basic courtesy and respect. Harry had walked into that studio with all the privilege in the world. He was given a platform, given respect, given the benefit of the doubt, and he used all of that to attack someone who had done nothing wrong. It also highlighted the incredible patience and grace that television hosts, like Allison, have to maintain. She deals with hundreds of guests every year. Some are wonderful, some are difficult, some are somewhere in between, and she treats all of them with the same warmth and professionalism. But what happens when that professionalism is thrown back in your face? What happens when kindness is met with hostility? Allison showed everyone watching exactly what you do. You stand your ground. You speak your truth. You defend yourself and your integrity. But you do it with class. You do it without stooping to their level. You do it in a way that allows you to look at yourself in the mirror later and feel proud of how you handled yourself. The clip of the confrontation spread across social media within minutes. People were dissecting every word, every gesture, every facial expression. And the overwhelming consensus was clear. Allison had done nothing wrong. She had been respectful, patient, and professional throughout. Harry, on the other hand, had shown a side of himself that many found deeply unappealing. Some people tried to defend him, suggesting that the pressure of public life had gotten to him, that he was having a bad day, that we should all be more understanding. And while compassion is important, it doesn't excuse bad behavior. It doesn't make it okay to verbally attack someone who is only trying to do their job. It doesn't justify treating another human being with contempt and disrespect. What made it even worse was the context. Allison Hammond is beloved by millions. She's worked incredibly hard to build her career. She's faced her own challenges and obstacles along the way. She's earned her place on that morning show couch through talent, dedication, and genuine warmth. To have someone come onto her show and treat her that way, to dismiss her as if she were nothing more than a cog in some machine, was insulting not just to her, but to everyone who respects and admires her. The question lingered in everyone's mind as the footage continued to be shared and discussed. How does someone become so disconnected from basic human decency? How does someone reach a point where they think it's acceptable to speak to another person that way, particularly someone who has welcomed them into their space with open arms? Perhaps it's the bubble of celebrity, the echo chamber of yes people and handlers who never challenge you, never tell you when you're wrong, never hold you accountable for your behavior. Perhaps it's years of being treated as special, as different, as above the normal rules that govern how the rest of us interact with each other. Whatever the reason, what happened on that This Morning set was a masterclass in contrasts. It was a reminder that true class isn't about titles or status or fame. It's about how you treat people, especially when things get difficult. It's about maintaining your integrity, even when someone is trying to provoke you. It's about being the bigger person, not because you have to, but because that's who you are at your core. Allison Hammond proved that day that she's not just a talented television host. She's a person of character, of substance, of genuine quality. She took the high road when many others might have taken the low one. She showed grace under fire. She demonstrated that you can stand up for yourself without tearing someone else down. And Harry? Well, Harry showed the world exactly who he is when things don't go his way, when he's not in control, when someone dares to ask him a question he doesn't want to answer. He showed that beneath the public persona, beneath the carefully managed image, there's an entitlement and an anger that bubbles just beneath the surface. The 37 seconds it took for everything to fall apart felt both incredibly long and impossibly short. Long because every moment was packed with tension and drama. Short, because it all happened so fast, escalating from a simple question to a complete meltdown before anyone could really process what was happening. Those 37 seconds changed everything. They turned what should have been a pleasant morning interview into one of the most talked about moments in British television history. They revealed truths about both people involved that no amount of careful media management could hide. They showed in real time what happens when entitlement collides with professionalism, when aggression meets grace, when someone who thinks they're above it all comes face to face with someone who genuinely isn't. And through it all, Allison Hammond remained herself. Warm, kind, professional, and unshakable. She didn't need to raise her voice to make her point. She didn't need to be cruel to defend herself. She simply stood in her truth, spoke with clarity and conviction, and let her character do the talking. That's the real story here. Not the tantrum of a privileged guest who couldn't handle a simple question, but the quiet strength of a woman who refused to be diminished, who stood up for herself and her show, who maintained her dignity even when someone was trying desperately to strip it away. That's what people will remember long after the shock of the moment fades. That's what matters.